Afriforum should cease and desist from engagement with the White House. Those that peddle truths, half-truths, and I only see hardship. And I think that's why we are calling on Afriforum to cease and desist. Take hands with the South African government. If our own government can't get a meeting at the White House, we need to raise the question, how does Afriforum get a...
Guys, so this guy Nel, I think I've actually made a video of him when he spoke about how, there have actually been a lot of applications or inquiries on by Afrikaners who actually wanted to know what the processes were to that in order to sign up for Trump's offer for those who are marginalized or those who feel threatened in South Africa to come to take refugee status in the US. Okay. But in this interview here, he's really angry with Afriforum and actually giving what he here calls a cease and desist kind of like imperative, so to speak, for Afriforum, because he argues that he doesn't want the Afrikaner fight for their right in South Africa to be fractured and disorganized, okay? And he thinks that it's quite not a wise move for Afriforum to have gone ahead of the ANC's official representative, which would be like probably Ronald Lamola or maybe President Ramaphosa or some delegates from the ANC, to really seek a sort of like relationship or probably a repair of the relationship between South Africa and the US. But he thinks that the Afriforum, now having gone to speak with the Trump administration before President Ramaphosa's team, seems to have set the stage for the basis of the discussions, that are that actually already engulf the sour relationship between President Trump, the US, and South Africa. And so he thinks that wasn't a smart move. Let's quickly listen to Neil kind of like exhume all the anger I'm beginning to see. He's really angry in this video, angry with Afriforum.
Mr. Diamond, the Afriforum and solidarity groups are still in the United States as we speak. Would you, as a business grouping, want to have an audience with them in order to explain that perhaps what they are engaged in is going to damage this very country, which they say, by the way, they are not willing and they are not interested to move away from? In other words, they won't leave South Africa. But what good will South Africa be if economically it is impaired?
The question would be, is if they're not interested in leaving South Africa, why are they here? Why are they in the United States? In what environment can one condone where organizations engage directly with foreign leaders based on domestic issues in South Africa? As we've indicated, the plight of the Afrikaner has been very significantly highlighted by the executive order of President Trump. I think it is time for our government to do some introspection about how we treat minorities in our country and what is the role of minorities in our country going forward. But at the same time, Afriforum should cease and desist from engagement with the White House. That is the role of the diplomatic channels that are between our two countries. The concern is we don't know what their message is. And if their message is left unchecked, this leaves a narrative where various voices are providing different levels of information, could be conflicting information. We are trying to mend the relationships between South Africa and the United States. And where we've got all these mixed messages, we think that it would adversely affect the endeavors that are happening to try and mend those relationships. As business, we are trying economic diplomacy. We've got our own relationships that we are trying to share the narratives of why it would have a negative economic impact if we continue with the current relationship with the United States. But we don't know what Afriforum came to discuss. I'm not seeking an audience with Afriforum. What I do believe is that Afriforum should take hands with government, with business, and that we have a collective engagement, not fragmented as it is currently occurring. It deeply disappoints me that Afriforum came before the South African government to engage President Trump. They've already set the table for a future discussion between the two governments, and we don't know what they have set on that table.
Yeah, and you are calling tonight for Afriforum and Solidarity to cease and desist, from engaging the White House. Question is, the South African government, at least based on what has been reported, it has been struggling to get an audience with officials in the White House. Why do you think Afriforum is the one that's getting an audience there?
Well, obviously, Afriforum has got a historic relationship with either the Trump administration or individuals that advise President Trump. It is very clear from this point that Afriforum enjoys a greater connection with the Trump administration than what the South African government does. And I think that's why we are calling for a unified engagement. Trump should maybe, Afriforum should maybe join the South African government and taking in hands so that we can address what is in South Africa's national interest in the relationship with the United States. Having gone unchecked and all by themselves, representing a subset of our society in South Africa, raises concerns for me. It does not mean that the plight of the Afrikaner is not close to my own heart. And many folks that are in business in the United States are from that demographic and that sub-society in South Africa. But we'd like to see a collective and unified engagement, not fragmented as it has occurred at the moment. And I think that's why we are calling on Afriforum to cease and desist. Take hands with the South African government. If our own government can't get a meeting at the White House, we need to raise the question, how does Afriforum get a meeting at the White House?
And that's the question I think everyone has got to try and answer. And tonight, both you and I doubt we have any answers to that. And perhaps to wind up our discussion, they are saying to the United States government that please do not punish the whole of South Africa. Do not withdraw funding, nor touch AGOA, because that will have a direct impact, perhaps even in their interest groups. The point is, who do you think the White House is going to listen to between, I guess, Afriforum and the South African government?
I think our challenge have been over the last couple of weeks that we don't know who informs President Trump or the Trump administration. We don't know where the information on the executive order came about, and we have asked those that peddle truths, half-truths and lies to cease and desist as well, so that we can have accurate and accountable information that is presented. In an event where you have got folks that are already laying the table for a future discussion between our government and the Trump administration, I only see hardship in this whole endeavor. We don't know what Afriforum have shared with the Trump administration, already asking that certain people be punished and others not be punished. We are, as a collective society and a country in South Africa, going to feel the punishment if we lose AGOA, if there are future economic sanctions against our country, and if we lose the aid that we received from the United States. It is in our best interest to restore the relationship, not fragmented or as individuals, but as a collective.
Let me ask you this final question, Neil Diamond. As a business grouping, the South African Chamber of Commerce in the United States, do you have proximity to the White House? And if so, how close are you to people like Elon Musk? Because those are the kinds of people that have the direct ear of the President of the United States.
As the South African Chamber of Commerce, we represent the voice of South African business interests, but also South Africans that do business within the United States. Mr. Musk is born in South Africa. He's the richest man on the planet, and he does have the ear of the American president. But it is not for us to use our relations to act in the interest of a propaganda machinery. It is our interest to act what is in the best economic interest between South Africa and the US. To answer your question, yes, we do have relationships in the Trump administration. We also do have relationships on Capitol Hill, but those relationships is to advance the business policy and the business framework, including AGOA, for the benefit of the people of South Africa and for South African business. We do not want to get involved in the politics. We do not want to engage on the US foreign policy or South Africa's diplomatic relationship with the US, but we do want to see that that is restored so that economic relations can thrive and can continue to benefit South Africa in its transformative agenda.
Neil Diamond, I want to thank you very much for your time this evening.
you know, you can just feel in this video, I think he just really isn't happy with the fact that Afriforum actually had to go all the way, and this was an unprecedented move by Afriforum. And one of the things I'm beginning to pick from Kali Creel is that I think there's an anger by the fact that the ANC has actually constantly refused to speak to Afriforum regarding what they argue are more farm murders than have been reported by the Ministry of, by I think the police minister, I think something like that. But also the fact that, you know, the ANC has just won't give them an ear, so they feel marginalized, they feel not heard. And you know, I think now this explains, and I'm beginning to understand why now this actually explains why Gates and Mackenzie actually had to broadcast the meeting to really listen to what Afriforum had to say. But that is not coming from President Ramaphosa himself. And so Afriforum is filled with this vigor and anger, and they have actually taken to, you know, their own fight to the doorsteps of the White House themselves to hopefully get what he calls funding to help some of the programs they have set in place. So according to Kali Creel of Afriforum, he argues that this trip now is not to set many people angry in South Africa or make South Africa angry or feel that they are treasonous, but they want to give practical steps and guides on how the US can help them, since they have refused to take Trump's offer to have Afrikaners, you know, move in droves to the US as refugees. I think I also have a few Afrikaner friends who have actually said they really do not see themselves able to leave South Africa. They do not have any other home, and South Africa is all they know as home. And to really leave South Africa to live as a refugee in the US really doesn't sound normal to them. So they would rather be in South Africa and build in South Africa and really help despite all the challenges South Africa has. So that's why in my last video I argued, and I was actually saying that the few words I would have to Afriforum is that I really hope that Kali Creel and his fight is really for all of the Afrikaners, you know, or probably a majority of the Afrikaners in South Africa. Because if that isn't the case, there might be an implosion in the Afrikaner community regarding what it is that Kali Creel is representing in this regard. And here, Nell, in this video you'll be watching soon, Nell Oliver is actually, I don't know if Nell Oliver is Afrikaner, but you know, he's the head of a SA Chamber of Commerce in the US, and you know, really I think he has this kind of like soft spot, so to speak, for Afrikaners and all. So he might be Afrikaner, but here in this video you can see him really obviously disagreeing with Kali Creel's approach, Afriforum's approach in this whole conflagration of issues and diplomatic tensions between South Africa and the US. And it's a really sensitive time to have South Africa out there in the open once more, you know, amidst this whole barrage of aid cuts that actually is hitting South Africa now terribly. And so I really don't know, it's quite a confusing one on how to really place and explain and understand what it is that what Afriforum actually wishes to achieve. But I think one of the things anyway is that Afriforum thinks that by getting to Trump, it is actually a way to get back to the ANC, because the ANC has refused to give them a listening ear to their demands and all of that. So by getting to Trump and having Trump probably sanction some members of the ANC directly, there might be a way for the ANC to now give an ear to Afriforum. And so this is actually what I'm beginning to read, and it's kind of like a move that is sort of like invigorated by a frustration by the fact that the ANC just wouldn't listen to the voices of the Afrikaners and Afriforums, so to speak, in its call for fairness and equity and justice and you know, inclusion into all its fight against some of these policies. But anyway, share your thoughts, guys. Let's have a robust conversation about this whole thing in the comments.